My name is Cindy Mayer. I'm 34 years old, and the night my relationship finally shattered didn't start with a kiss or a betrayal or a fight. It started with a sentence, one arrogant, careless sentence that cleaved straight through 3 years of denial and made everything painfully, horrifyingly clear. People like to say breakups happen slowly, then all at once. For me, it happened in exactly 12 words. 12 words spoken by the man I once believed I'd spend my life with. But before I tell you what he said, I need you to understand who Evan Ross was to me, who I thought he was, who he pretended to be, and who he truly became. Evan was beautiful. There's no delicate way to say it. He was the kind of man who walked into a room and unconsciously rearranged the atmosphere. Tall, sharply dressed, with that movie star smile that made strangers blush and waiters forget their lines. When I first met him, that confidence felt electric. He looked at me like I was the one person he had chosen out of a lineup of admirers, and I, ordinary, practical, steady Cindy, fell for it faster than I cared to admit. For the first year, I felt lucky. I was the woman dating the man everyone noticed. I had the stable job, the calm personality, the reliable income. He had the charm, the charisma, the untouchable aura. Opposites attract right. At least that's what I told myself. But by year 3, that charisma had curdled into something darker, something hollowed out. Evan's entire sense of worth ran on external fuel compliments, attention, lingering glances from women who liked the way he rolled his sleeves or loosened his tie. He needed female validation the way a plant needs sunlight. If the barista didn't flirt, the coffee shop was unpleasant. If a woman at the gym didn't stare, he claimed he looked off today. If someone online didn't praise the shirt he posted, the entire internet was toxic. And me, I became the emotional reservoir he siphoned from when the world didn't adore him loudly enough. I wasn't his partner. I was his safety net, his stability, the person who covered the rent on the apartment he insisted we move into because it was closer to the city's energy. I paid 70% of the bills without complaint because he told me softly, sweetly at first that his career in marketing would take off soon. That he just needed time, that creative work fluctuates. But Evan never fluctuated. He coasted. And while he coasted, I carried. The real issue wasn't that he flirted. It was how he treated me when I voiced concern. Any boundary I set was met with ridicule. Any discomfort was insecurity. Any expression of hurt was overreacting. The worst of it revolved around Juliana. Juliana was a new hire in his department, and according to Evan, she was the funniest, wittiest, most talented coworker to ever exist. Overnight, she became the star of every story he told. Dinner conversation wasn't about us anymore. It was about what Juliana said, what Juliana wore, how Juliana playfully teased him during meetings. He'd show me memes she sent him late at night, claiming they were just jokes. He'd light up when her name appeared on his phone, a brightness I hadn't seen directed at me in months. And anytime I asked why she needed to text him at 10:30 p.m., he'd give me the look. The one people give a child who doesn't understand the rules of an adult world. Cindy, don't be one of those girlfriends, he'd sigh. Women like her are just friendly. You're reading into it. But I wasn't reading into anything. I was drowning in it. One evening, after I'd finished paying our rent and utilities, I asked him gently why Juliana needed to talk to him after hours. He didn't hesitate to cut me down. You seriously need to work on your confidence, he said, shaking his head. It's embarrassing. Juliana likes talking to me because I'm charismatic. People like me. You should appreciate that. His words stung, but I swallowed them, convincing myself he didn't mean them the way they sounded. I told myself he was stressed. I told myself I was imagining the shift. But I wasn't. The weeks leading up to his company's annual winter gala only made things worse. Each day, he mentioned Juliana at least a dozen times. Each mention had that same sparkle in his eyes, the sparkle that used to be reserved for me. By the time the gala rolled around, I already knew something was wrong. Something deep and structural. Something that couldn't be fixed with a conversation or a compromise. But I still went. I wore the navy dress he once said made me look effortlessly elegant. He wore a custom suit he bought on my credit card after claiming it would boost his professional image. As we stepped out of the car, I whispered, "You look amazing tonight." He didn't say it back. Inside the ballroom glimmered crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, the kind of place where you could smell the money in the air. Evan thrived in environments like this. I could feel the shift the second his coworkers spotted him. But nothing compared to when Juliana made her entrance. She walked in wearing a red satin dress that clung to her confidence more than her curves. Evan lit up like someone plugged him into a power source. She raised a hand grinning, and he excused himself from me mid-sentence to go greet her. I watched quiet observant as she pulled him into a hug that lingered longer than necessary. I watched her hand slide down his arm. I watched him lean closer, soaking up the attention like it was oxygen. I reminded myself I wasn't the jealous type, but jealousy wasn't what I felt. It was erasure. When I finally approached them, after nearly an hour of being left alone, I caught Juliana leaning into him, whispering something that made him laugh, really laugh. The kind of laugh he hadn't shared with me in months. And then I saw the slow, deliberate kiss she pressed against his cheek right near his ear. Not friendly, not casual, intimate. Evan didn't pull away. He leaned in. That was when I said his name. He turned startled like he'd forgotten I was even there. "Hey, Cindy," he said casually. "Relax. Juliana's just being fun." I told him we were leaving. I kept my voice steady. Around us, people paused, sensing the tension. He stepped closer, smirking with the kind of arrogance only a man who thinks he's untouchable can pull off. "God, Cindy," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "you're being so insecure. You should be grateful women want me." 12 words. That was all it took. I looked at him. Really looked at him and realized I didn't love this man anymore. I loved the version I thought he was. But the real Evan, he had vanished long ago. And that night, so did I. I didn't speak when we left the ballroom, mostly because Evan didn't follow me. I walked out alone, stepping into the cold night air, letting the wind numb my cheeks as I tried to steady my breathing. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even heartbroken. What I felt was something far more dangerous to our relationship clarity. I called a rideshare for one. Evan didn't notice, or if he did, he didn't care enough to stop me. I didn't wait for him. I didn't want him to come after me. I just wanted space to understand the woman I had become under the weight of his arrogance, his entitlement, his bottomless need for attention. When I stepped into our apartment just before midnight, the scent of his cologne still hung in the air, a scent I once loved, now heavy and sour. I stood in the entryway, staring at the dim lights, the living room, the plants. I watered the sofa. I picked out the framed pictures of us, smiling as if the happiness had been real. But tonight made one thing undeniable: whatever we had left wasn't love, it was a performance. And I was done performing. Evan texted me at 12:18 a.m. "Evan, seriously, you left." That was embarrassing. I didn't reply. "Evan, grow up, Cindy. You made a scene for no reason." Still nothing. "Evan, Juliana was just having fun. You're overreacting." Overreacting. Always overreacting. My silence must have worried him because 20 minutes later, a new message appeared. "Evan, did you get home safe?" The sudden concern felt insulting, performative, habitual. I didn't answer. Instead, I went to the bedroom and started packing. Not in a rage, not impulsively, but with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd already made the decision long before their hands began moving. 3 suitcases appeared from under the bed. I filled them with only what belonged to me: clothes, personal documents, the laptop I had paid for, the jewelry my mother gave me. I didn't cry. Not once. Not even when I reached for the framed photo of us in Italy. The trip I'd paid for entirely because Evan said his income was tied up in a project that never materialized. Even then, my hands didn't shake. I was calm. Too calm. A quiet storm finally settling into itself. As I zipped the last suitcase, our dog Clover lifted his head from the foot of the bed. He watched me confused, his tail thumping slowly when I walked toward him. "It's okay," I whispered, kneeling to scratch behind his ears. "You're coming with me." Evan always said Clover was technically his, though he never walked him, fed him, or paid a single vet bill. The only thing he ever provided was the claim of ownership. But Clover didn't choose Evan. Clover chose me. And tonight I chose myself. I loaded the suitcases into my trunk, gently guided Clover into the passenger seat, and climbed behind the wheel. I didn't even glance back at the apartment building as I pulled away. I already knew I would never step foot inside it again. I drove to a 24-hour motel near the edge of town. The room was small, the bed stiff, the lighting terrible, but it was quiet, peaceful, mine. I crawled under the blankets, fully dressed. Clover curled beside me, and I slept more soundly than I had in years. When I woke up, sunlight filled the room. Clover was snoring softly, and for a moment I forgot where I was. Then it hit me. I had left. I had actually left. My phone, which I had shut off sometime during the night, blinked with life when I powered it back on. Notifications flooded the screen like a dam breaking. 27 texts, 14 missed calls, 3 voicemails. I didn't open any of them. Instead, I checked into an Airbnb, a small house with a fenced yard and a cozy living room. I paid for a month up front. It felt like buying oxygen. Only once I'd unpacked Clover's bowl and opened the blinds did I finally read Evan's messages. The timeline told the entire story of his unraveling. 12:31 a.m. Are you really doing this? 12:46 a.m. This is dramatic even for you. 1:12 a.m. Whatever. I'm staying out with the team. 2:05 a.m. Cindy, answer your phone. 2:27 a.m. If you walked home alone, that's not my fault. 3:02 a.m. Seriously, where are you? His shift from arrogance to panic to frustration was predictable, an emotional script I had memorized over the years. I scrolled slowly, letting each message confirm what I already knew. Evan never apologized. Not once. Not for humiliating me. Not for dismissing me. Not for kissing back when Juliana pressed her lips to his cheek. In Evan's world, everything was always someone else's fault. Voicemail 1 began with a long, irritated sigh. Cindy, I don't understand why you're blowing this out of proportion. You embarrassed yourself way more than you embarrassed me. Just come home so we can talk. Voicemail 2 was tighter, angrier. Are you really ignoring me? Wow. Real mature. I bet Clover's freaking out without me. That line made me roll my eyes. Voicemail 3 sounded different. Not angry, nervous. Cindy, the rent is due next week. I need to know what's going on. Call me back. There it was. The truth beneath every message. Evan didn't want me back. He wanted the life I provided him. Because without me, the bills wouldn't get paid. Without me, the apartment wouldn't stay afloat. Without me, his lifestyle, the lifestyle I funded, would collapse. I blocked him. Not out of spite, out of necessity. The silence that followed was beautiful. 2 days later, I received a phone call I hadn't expected. Cindy, a man's voice whispered. It's Aaron, from Evan's office. Aaron was one of the only people in Evan's department I genuinely liked. He always treated me with respect, unlike the rest who practically worshipped Evan's charm. I'm sorry to bother you, he continued. But you might want to hear this. What happened? Aaron exhaled sharply like he couldn't believe what he was about to share. It's about Juliana and Evan. Of course it was. Things blew up at work, he said. Badly. Like, HR involved people whispering the whole floor watching kind of bad. My heart didn't race. It didn't break. It simply waited. Juliana is engaged, Aaron said. Has been for a year. Her fiancé came back from a trip and listen. Evan tried to corner her this morning, talking like they had some secret connection. She shut him down in front of everyone. Hard. I closed my eyes. Of course she did. And now, Aaron added, sounding both horrified and fascinated, Evan is panicking. Like really panicking. HR pulled them both in. He's been yelling about misunderstandings, claiming she led him on. It's a mess. A poetic mess. I realized with a slow, dawning calm that Evan wasn't crashing by accident. He was crashing exactly the way a person does when the spotlight finally burns out. Thanks for telling me, I said. Are you okay? Aaron asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yes, I said. For the first time in a long time, yes. And I meant it. The morning after Aaron's call, I sat on the small Airbnb couch, wrapped in a blanket, Clover stretched across my legs like a furry paperweight. The house smelled faintly of pine and old books. It felt safe, something my own apartment with Evan hadn't felt like in a long time. Safety is a strange thing. You don't realize you've been missing it until it finally returns and sits beside you quietly like an old friend. I sipped my coffee and stared at my suitcases lined neatly near the door. They looked like they belonged to someone passing through someone who hadn't decided where she belonged yet. But I knew better. I wasn't passing through anything. I was rebuilding. My phone buzzed again. An email notification. Subject lease inquiry. My stomach tightened before I even opened it. It was from our landlord. Hi, Cindy. I received Evan's message earlier this morning about concerns regarding next month's rent. He mentioned you may have moved out. Could you please confirm whether your portion of the lease should be marked for early termination? The second-hand embarrassment radiated off the screen. Evan hadn't called to apologize. He hadn't called to explain. He had called our landlord to ask how much trouble he was in without my income holding his world together. I typed my reply without hesitation. Yes, please proceed with termination of my half. Thank you. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Evan. He must have realized I unblocked email, but not his number. The buzzing continued vibrating against the wooden table like an insect trapped under glass. Clover lifted his head, ears twitching. I didn't answer. I let the phone ring until it went quiet. The silence afterward was warm, empowering. But then it buzzed again, this time with a voicemail alert. I didn't want to listen, but I did. Cindy, you can't just... He exhaled sharply. You can't leave me with everything. The rent, the bills. We built this life together. We didn't. I built it. He lived in it. I know you're upset, but this is extreme. Come home so we can talk like adults. Talk like adults. Evan's favorite phrase when he wanted to convince me his disrespect was reasonable. I deleted the voicemail and blocked his number permanently. Then I got to work. Not emotional work. Actual, logistical work. The kind of work ending a relationship requires when you've been financially symbiotic with someone who never pulled their weight. I opened my laptop and logged into the shared accounts. My hands didn't shake. My breathing stayed steady. First joint checking. I transferred my half of the balance into my personal savings. Not a penny more, not a penny less. Next, credit cards. Evan had one card under my name as an authorized user, the one he used for emergencies, that usually translated to overpriced cologne or designer jackets he claimed he needed for networking. I removed him from the account. It took 10 seconds. Then, utilities. I scheduled the cancellation of electricity, internet, and water for 48 hours later. Enough time for him to figure things out. Not enough time to stay comfortable. Finally, streaming services, car insurance, gym memberships. Anything with my card on it was severed. With every click, with every confirmation email, it felt like I was clearing brush from a road I hadn't walked in years. A road that led back to myself. By early afternoon, the apartment we once shared had transformed into a house of cards one breeze away from collapsing. And for the first time, the collapse wasn't my problem. Clover nudged my hand gently, reminding me that the world still had warmth in it. I set my laptop aside and lowered myself to the floor beside him, burying my fingers in the soft fur behind his ears. We're doing okay, aren't we? I whispered. He wagged his tail once softly, as if confirming that yes, whoever we would become next, we'd become it together. 2 days passed. 2 days of quiet mornings, long walks with Clover, early dinners, and the unfamiliar sensation of not checking my phone every hour to see whether Evan needed something. Freedom tasted strange sweet, but unfamiliar, like a dessert from a culture you didn't know you belonged to. On the third morning, I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating against the nightstand. Unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but gut instinct told me it wasn't Evan. I answered. Cindy? A shaky voice. Female. This is Hannah. From Evan's office. I knew the name, Juliana's best friend. Sorry to bother you, she said quickly, but something happened today, and God, I don't even know how to explain it. Is it about Evan? I asked. Yes, and Juliana. I let out a slow breath. Go on. Juliana filed an official complaint with HR yesterday, Hannah said. She said Evan was making her uncomfortable, that he had been pushing boundaries, that she never wanted things to go beyond professional banter. Professional banter. That phrase made my stomach twist. And Evan, I asked? He's falling apart, she whispered. He cornered Juliana in the office kitchen this morning. He told her he left the gala early because he didn't want to upset her. He said he thought she was giving him signals. He tried to convince her they had some kind of connection. I closed my eyes not from pain, but from the unbelievable predictability of it. And I prompted. Juliana snapped, Hannah said. She told him she was engaged. She said the kiss on the cheek meant nothing. She said he made her uncomfortable. And then her fiancé, well, he came to the office. Oh no, oh yes. It got loud. Hannah continued. Very loud. HR dragged Evan in immediately after. He's under investigation now. They sent him home. I pictured it. Evan, red-faced, scrambling to salvage his image, claiming innocence, insisting she flirted first. But the truth was simple. Evan wasn't in love with Juliana. He was in love with being wanted. And when that illusion shattered, so did he. What does he want from me? I asked quietly. Hannah hesitated. He asked for your new number. He said he needed to fix things with you because you're the only stable part of his life. Stable. Code word for the only person who ever carried him. Thank you for letting me know, I said. Are you okay? She asked gently. I looked at Clover curled near my feet. I looked at the sunlight warming the Airbnb's walls. I looked at my own reflection in the window, tired but free. I'm okay, I said. And for once it wasn't a lie. Later that afternoon, while returning from a walk, I saw a figure standing near my car, a tall, familiar silhouette, shoulders hunched, hands in pockets. Evan. He turned when he heard Clover's leash jingling. Cindy, he breathed out relief, flooding his face. Finally. He took a step toward me. Clover growled. Evan froze. Can we talk? He asked, voice cracking. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't shrink. No, I said softly. His face crumpled. Please, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I considered him. Not the man he once pretended to be. The man he truly was, now exposed, unraveling, desperate. 5 minutes wouldn't change anything. But 5 minutes might close a door forever. I nodded once. 5, I said. He exhaled shakily, stepping closer. Cindy, I made a mistake. He had no idea how many. Evan stood in front of me like a man who'd been drained of color. His eyes were swollen-rimmed red as if he hadn't slept. His clothes, usually pristine, were wrinkled. He didn't look like the polished, self-assured man who had strutted across the ballroom with Juliana on his arm. He looked small, disoriented, human in the weakest sense of the word. Cindy. I don't even know where to start, he said, voice trembling. Start with why you're here, I answered. My tone wasn't sharp, just steady. Controlled. He swallowed. I ruined everything. I didn't see it before, but now Cindy, I messed up. I really messed up. I waited. I didn't offer sympathy. I didn't fill the silence for him. I let him sit with the discomfort he'd spent years making me feel. It's Juliana, he whispered, rubbing the back of his neck. She twisted things. I thought she liked me. I thought we had something real. She flirted all the time. She was always laughing at my jokes. She hugged me. She sent me memes. She didn't twist anything, I said quietly. You did. His mouth opened slightly, stunned, as if he hadn't considered that possibility even once. I'm not blaming her, he murmured weakly. I genuinely believe she felt the same way. But then she yelled at me in front of everyone. And her fiancé, God, he almost hit me, Cindy. The shame in his voice was thick, but so was the disbelief. He still didn't understand the difference between attention and affection, between being admired and being chosen. So now you're here, I said. Why? He lifted his head, and the desperation in his eyes was unmistakable. Because I realized something, he said. I realized that while I was chasing stupid attention, I had something real. You. I took you for granted. I didn't appreciate everything you did for us. I didn't treat you right. I see that now. Please, Cindy, I'm asking you to come home. Home. The word tasted different now. Sharp. Wrong. There is no home, I replied. Not for us. He flinched, as if the words were a physical blow. But Cindy, listen. I'll change. I swear. I'll stop the flirting. I'll set boundaries. I'll go to therapy. I'll fix this. Just give me a chance, please. His voice cracked on that last word. Evan, I said, you're not here because you love me. You're here because you lost your backup plan. His face twisted, wounded. That's not true. It is, I said gently. If Juliana had chosen you, if she had said yes, instead of humiliating you, would you be standing here right now? He froze. The answer hovered in the air between us. He knew it. I knew it. We both knew it. No, he whispered finally. There it was. The truth. Ugly, simple, final. I'm not your consolation prize, I said. I'm not the safe harbor you crawl back to when your fantasy burns down. I never thought of you that way, he protested, shaking his head. You're twisting everything. I care about you. I love you. Do you? I asked. Or do you love what I provided? He blinked, confused. What you provided, he echoed. Yes, I said, voice steady. Stability, rent, bills, emotional labor, support, patience. A lifestyle you enjoyed but didn't contribute to. His jaw tightened. That's not fair. But it's true. His silence confirmed it. And you know what else is true, I continued. You never apologized. Not once. Not the night of the party. Not the next morning. Not when you called me dramatic. Not when you called the landlord in a panic. You didn't apologize until your world collapsed. His lips parted, but no words came out. I took one slow breath, grounding myself. Do you remember what you told me at the gala, I asked. His shoulders stiffened. Cindy, don't. You said I should be grateful women want you. He closed his eyes, shame washing over him. You said it made you look better, that I should thank you for being desirable. My voice didn't rise. I didn't need volume to make the point land. That sentence told me everything I needed to know. I was drunk, he whispered, defeated. I didn't mean... You did mean it, I said. Alcohol loosens the tongue. It doesn't create new thoughts. It reveals the ones already there. He looked down at the pavement. A leaf blew past us. Clover sat beside me, silent, sensing the tension. I'm sorry, he said finally. The words were small, fragile. I mean it. I'm so sorry. I nodded once. Thank you. But an apology doesn't rebuild what you broke. So that's it, he asked, voice cracking with panic. 3 years together, and you're just done. I didn't come to this decision last night, I replied. I came to it over months, years even. I just didn't see it clearly until the moment you told me I should be grateful to stand beside a man who treats me like I'm replaceable. He shook his head in disbelief. You're throwing everything away. No, I said softly. I'm finally saving myself. The wind shifted, rustling the trees overhead. Evan took a small step closer, eyes pleading. Cindy, I need you. You need what I provided, I corrected again. Not me. His breath hitched. I can't do this alone. Yes, I said. You can. You just don't want to. He looked like he wanted to argue, but the fight had left him. His shoulders slumped, the facade crumbling. So what now, he whispered. Now, I said calmly, you take responsibility for your own life, your bills, your job, your choices. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He looked around as if searching for the script, the charm, the confidence he always relied on. But charm can't fix consequences, not this time. Cindy, his voice broke. Please don't leave me alone. I held his gaze. You left me alone long before I ever walked away. His face crumpled. Tears gathered, spilling down his cheeks. For a split second, I saw the boy inside him, the insecure, lonely approval-starved version he hid behind bravado. But I wasn't his healer. I wasn't his emotional parent. I wasn't his anchor anymore. I'm done, Evan, I said. I wish you well, truly. But we're over. He covered his face with his hands, shoulders shaking. I didn't reach out. I didn't comfort him. I didn't bend the way I used to bend. Instead, I stepped back gently, tugging Clover's leash. Goodbye, Evan. His hands dropped. Cindy, please. But I had already turned around. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. For the first time in years, walking away felt like walking towards something, not leaving something behind. And that something was me. 6 months. That's how long it's been since the day I stood in front of Evan outside my Airbnb and told him goodbye. 6 months since the last time I heard his voice crack, saw his shoulders slump, watched him realize that the stability he took for granted had walked away and wasn't coming back. 6 months since I returned to myself. In that time, my life hasn't turned into a glittering Hallmark movie. Healing was slow, quiet, uneventful in the ways that matter, but monumental in the ways that count. The first month felt like decompression after years underwater. I found myself noticing things I'd forgotten were part of being alive, the sound of Clover's paws on hardwood in the morning. The warmth of sunlight on my face when I took him on long walks, the luxury of sitting in silence without someone demanding attention or admiration. Little things felt profound, brewing my own coffee without a timer. Set around Evan's caffeine moods, watching my savings account remain intact instead of hemorrhaging into his lifestyle, choosing dinner based on what I wanted rather than what photographed well for his social media. Bit by bit, I reclaimed space in my own mind. Eventually, I bought a small condo, not in the trendy downtown district Evan loved for its networking energy, but in a quiet neighborhood bordered by maple trees and walking trails. It wasn't glamorous, but it was peaceful. Every evening, Clover and I would sit on the small porch, listening to cicadas hum while the sky turned shades of lavender and pink. Peace, that elusive thing I didn't even know I had been starving for. Meanwhile, Evan's universe didn't simply wobble, it collapsed. Aaron kept me vaguely updated, not out of gossip, but out of genuine concern. According to him, HR concluded their investigation, and while they didn't fire Evan outright, they placed him on unpaid leave while reviewing witness statements. 3 people came forward describing behavior that made them uncomfortable, the lingering compliments, the overly personal jokes, the late-night messages. Things Evan always defended as just harmless charm. When his leave ended, they redirected him to another department with significantly lower responsibility. Corporate language for "we don't trust you" around clients. The demotion tanked his confidence. His commissions dried up. His once proud persona turned brittle at the edges. After 2 months of struggling, he quit telling coworkers the company didn't recognize his talent. Talent had never been the issue. Accountability was. Without my income and with no job, he couldn't keep the apartment. 1 week, he tried to negotiate partial rent with the landlord. The next, his belongings were sitting on the curb in cardboard boxes that softened in the rain. He moved in with a friend for a while, then another. Then his mother, a woman he'd once described as too overbearing to live with. Life has a funny way of humbling the proud. As for Juliana, she never spoke to him again. She continued her engagement and, as far as I know, got married last month. She never filed anything criminal, but her complaint was enough to scar Evan's professional record. The irony wasn't lost on me. He gambled everything on the validation of a woman who never wanted him. And he lost the only woman who actually did. But none of that is why I feel peaceful. My peace came from something else, something far quieter. I didn't go back. Not when he panicked, not when he begged, not when he tried to call from blocked numbers, not when he emailed me long paragraphs that started with sorrow and ended with blame. I never responded, not once. I let silence be the final sentence. 3 months ago, I attended a friend's wedding. I went alone, not because I was avoiding anything, but because I genuinely liked my own company again. I wore a soft rose-colored dress I hadn't dared to wear during my years with Evan. He always said the shade washed me out. But that night, when I caught my reflection in the mirror, a woman with steady eyes and a soft smile, I realized the color suited me perfectly. During the reception, while Clover stayed home snoozing in his bed, I found myself seated next to a man named Michael. He was the groom's cousin, a software engineer with kind eyes and a laugh that resonated quietly instead of theatrically. We talked about everything except ourselves at first. Books we loved, places we dreamed of visiting, the weird universal experience of buying produce that spoils faster than it should. He didn't scan the room for attention. He didn't perform charm like a stage actor. He wasn't trying to be liked. He was simply present. When he asked me if I wanted to dance, I almost said no, reflexively from years of shrinking myself, beside the blaze of Evan's ego. But something in me softened, and I said yes. As we moved slowly across the floor, he said something I'll never forget. "You seem incredibly grounded, like someone who knows exactly who she is." I nearly laughed. If he only knew how recently that had stopped being a lie. But instead I smiled. "Thank you," I said. It wasn't always that way. Later, after the music faded and people drifted home, he walked me to my car. He didn't ask for anything. Not a kiss, not a promise, not a hint of reciprocated attention. Just a simple, "I hope I get to see you again." I didn't feel the butterflies people talk about. I felt something better ease. Because peace isn't dramatic. Peace is gentle. A week later, while sitting on my porch with Clover's head resting on my knee, I thought about everything Evan had taught me, though not in the way he'd ever intended. He taught me that attention isn't affection, that charm isn't character, that confidence without empathy is just vanity with good lighting. But the biggest lesson came from the sentence he threw at me like a weapon. "You should be grateful women want me." Back then, the words cut me open. Now they clarify everything. He wanted to be the prized possession, the one who believed his desirability made him worth more. But real worth has nothing to do with who wants you. Real worth lies in how you treat the people who do. He never learned that. I did. Clover nudged my hand, and I stroked the soft fur between his ears. He sighed contentedly, his body warm beside mine as fireflies blinked across the yard. I whispered not to him, but to the version of myself who once settled for scraps. "You deserved better, and you finally chose it." In the months that followed, Michael and I kept seeing each other, slowly, carefully, with no rush to define anything. He knew about Evan eventually, but I told the story without flinching or breaking. Because it no longer hurt. It no longer owned me. It was simply something that had happened, something I survived, something I grew from. Sometimes Michael still says in quiet moments, "You have this peacefulness about you." It's rare. And every time I smile, because I know exactly where that peace came from. It wasn't the breakup, it wasn't the loneliness, it wasn't even the healing. It was the moment I recognized my worth and refused to negotiate it again. Evan once told me I should be grateful that women wanted him. But standing here now on my own porch with my own life, with someone who offers kindness instead of craving attention,